Hi, I'm Courtney Nash. I'm an editor with O'Reilly, and I'm joined today by Kate Matsudaira. Hi, Kate. Welcome.
Hi, Courtney. It's great to be here.
And Kate is a founder, CEO, wearer of many hats of a new startup called Popforms.
hmm
And Kate is going to be speaking at the Velocity Conference in Santa Clara in June, and we are here to talk a bit about the kinds of things you'll be talking about in your talk, which is roughly about operations and people. um,
Yep.
which is an interesting topic. A lot of people now in operations, it's really the big thing to be talking about automation. Trying to take manual processes and people processes out of things. So for a world of people in operations who are trying to do that, if you're focusing on automation, what do you need to know about people? Where do people come in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that in general, if you can think about it that way, but no one ever does their work in a vacuum. And chances are the whole reason you're running a system or software or whatever it is that you're doing operations on, it's to support some sort of business function. And ultimately, someone somewhere is paying for it. And so your customers are people. And so I almost feel like if you're not thinking about the people, then maybe you're focusing on all the wrong things.
So what does it mean to step back from configuration management and servers and all of that? Like, what aspects of people should people be focusing on in an operations environment in this case?
Well, I think your audience and like why you're doing things is always really important. One of the things that I think a lot of people fall victim to, like in security or compliance or operations, is that we should do this because it's a best practice or because we should or because someone else does it. And I feel like with all those projects, you've got to, if you want to be successful and you want to have a great career, you've got to think about why you're doing it. Like, what is the return on the work? How does it actually help you or your team do their job? How does it help your business move forward? How does it help your, be more successful? Because the more successful and the more value you create, it'll translate into your career. So there's actually kind of, it's a smart correlation. But if you just think about, oh, we should have this tool or this, piece of configuration management or automation, but there isn't a positive return for building it, then maybe you won't achieve the success that you're hoping for, right? So I feel like there's this important business kind of uh, profit thoughtful side that sometimes goes missing.
Tell me a little bit more about the thoughtful side. I think I've heard you talk about this elsewhere too, just about the idea of building trust on a team. What does that entail?
Yeah, I mean, I think at some level, you've got to know why you're doing the work. Early in my career, I got advice, which was to work as close to the customers as you can. And at first, I didn't really get it, and I didn't understand why, because I thought it was way more interesting to work on like the heavy lifting, back end infrastructure, kind of supporting everybody. But at some level, to have kind of success and to have that, the more you're able to clearly show the value that you're adding, the better. I think every engineer or person who's ever tried to like get funded in their organization an infrastructure or IT sort of investment or refactoring project has had some bit of friction because it's always like, how do you convince the business people that this is the right thing to do? And a lot of that means that you're thinking smart and you're able to articulate it and that you built trust around those relationships. Because at the end of the day, most people won't know what's right or wrong, but if you can get them to believe you, you're a lot more able to sell your ideas and make progress and traction on the things that you want to do.
So that's something that the actually convincing people part is, to me, seems like the hardest part, or that building that trust. So it's one thing to say, okay, great, we need to focus more on people, or what some people often call soft skills, which sort of drives me
hmm
crazy because I think they're really hard. But let's say somebody says, okay, we're going to focus on this more in our organization, right? We want to do this, but they don't even know where to start. Like, how do you start focusing on these kinds of people skills more in an operations environment?
Well, I think you've got to create a culture of kind of like growth or improvement where those things are valued. Um, And so I think it's about, it kind of comes from the top or it comes from, leaders in the organization. But I think anyone can be a leader. It doesn't have to just be a person with a fancy title or direct reports. It's about kind of the people who are taking the reins and leading the way, which sometimes are just engineers, right? So I think setting a good example for one and showing that it's important. I think the other thing is, and this was a realization like I had later in my career than I wish I had, which is that it's kind of that classic, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, like, I forget what the actual saying is, but essentially that if you do a lot of work and you spend a ton of time but no one sees the value or no one actually realizes the work or the contribution that you've made, then it may not be a good contribution, right? So you have to kind of develop those soft skills if you want to be successful. And at some level, you might be able to escape it, but if you want to rise up the ladder, you want to get promoted, you want to raise things like that, you've got to often do more than just your technical skills. I mean, you can focus on your technical skills, but going deep in those areas will help. However, if you can like supercharge and sell your ideas and explain complicated things to people, it just opens so many more doors on what you can do and the effect you can have. And who doesn't want to make a bigger impact?
So you said supercharge, which brings me to my favorite question that I get to ask people about their talks and about velocity, which is what would be a superpower that someone will have after attending your talk at Velocity?
Gosh, well, I hope that they'll come away with like some good actionable tips and ideas on how they can kind of look at the way they're doing their job in a different way. So it's almost like a super self-awareness, but I like to think it a little more useful than that too, and maybe like a dash of inspiration in there.
So inspired self-awareness. That sounds like a pretty good
Yeah, something
superpower.
like that. I don't know. Yeah.
Excellent. And what are you looking forward to most for Velocity next month in Santa Clara?
What am I looking forward to most? I am really excited. I always feel like there's a lot of interesting things around best practices and kind of new ways of doing things with process. And I just feel like every process and every way we're doing software now has so much room for improvement that I always get really inspired hearing what other people are doing. So that's one of the things.
Well, wonderful. We look forward to seeing you at the conference in June.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thanks.